Good and evil. Probably you've heard the question, if there is a God, why there is so much evil in the world? That's the common question that I've never liked to use when I was younger in the discussion about the religion, because it was like kicking someone in the nuts. They cannot do much about it. They are vulnerable no matter how strong they are. And yeah, it was pretty much end of any conversation about religion. Because the problem is that a religious person, as much as trying to explain that problem, they cannot do it, because the further they go with their explanation, the more complicated and wrong it becomes. Simply because they based on the bad first thought, bad fundament. And that fundament is split between good and evil. That there are two beings, God and devil, or whatever other religion might call it, and those beings are completely separate from each other. If you're gonna assume that, then you cannot explain why there is an evil in the world. Because you can always say, okay, so if there is a God, and God can do everything, why he created, or she created, or it created an evil in the world? And usually what you're gonna hear from the religious person is that God gave people free will so they can choose between good and between evil. But that's not explained much, because you can always backfire with the another question, which is, okay, so why God is playing with us? Why he doesn't love us? Because if he would love us, he would erase evil from our beings as well, from human, and we wouldn't even have a chance to be evil. Just make everything perfect and good. And usually they not gonna be able to explain you, or any explanation that they're gonna try to give you, it's gonna be very complicated and far from truth. And the reason is that, as I said, it's duality in way how they look at it. There is good and there is an evil, and those are separate beings, but it's not true. It's the same as you would take a magnet, chop it in half, and you would like to have half with only South Pole and half with only North Pole. And it's not gonna happen. The nature doesn't work like that. The nature will create these two small magnets with both poles. They always go together. There is no one pole without the other pole, and there is no evil without the good, and good without evil. That's how it is. The good implicates evil, and the evil implicates good. You wouldn't know what is good if you would never experience evil, and you don't know what it does it mean to create, to make evil deeds, if you don't know what is the opposition of it, which is good. So we can make it easier to imagine. Just imagine that consciousness, so something that we all have, is like a magnet. It has two poles, and it always gonna have two poles. It doesn't matter for how little pieces you're gonna chop it. It's always those pieces, they're gonna have two poles. And the consciousness, no matter how small pieces of consciousness you might have, or even if you're gonna focus on only specific part of your consciousness, there always gonna be a good and bad there as the poles. Because there is no consciousness without both poles, and there is no magnet without both poles. The nature telling it us very simply, and does explain why there is an evil in the world. There has to be. There is no chance to not have an evil in the world, because we wouldn't have good in the world, and if we wouldn't have that constant fight between evil and good, there wouldn't be any action, there wouldn't be existence. The evil is necessary. So if you're a religious person and next time someone gonna ask you about it, just try to assume a little bit different basics. So there is no separate good being, there is no separate bad being, because even in Christianity, the devil itself, Lucifer, comes from a god. It was created by the god. The god in Judaism created a Yetzachara, a evil or tricky spirit, and it goes into the every single human being. So the Jews they're a little bit closer to the truth, but they still don't understand that there are no other ways. If you decide to live as a human being, if you decide to be conscious, you either taking the whole package, which is good and evil, or you don't take anything and you can commit suicide or don't bother anymore, if there is such a choice. So I would say that it's very important for your well-being, for not being frustrated, to understand that everything that evil happens in the world is just the other side of the same coin. And on the other side you have as much as good things in the world as you see the evil one. And I know that most of us noticing mainly the evil things in the world, but that's how that's how our brain works, like a radar. If something is safe, good for us, we don't notice it anymore. There is no reason to notice it. So if you taking a trip or stroll and you're looking at the beautiful trees or blue sky, you don't think this is good. This is granted. This is how it is. But if you're gonna look at it this way, and you're gonna realize that there is tremendous amount of goodness around you, then you're gonna fully understand why there is so much evil as well.